it's John and Casey here from Are You Real? And we've been sleeping on my pillow now for over a month. And I'm telling you, our sleep has improved drastically. So what are you waiting for? When are you going to jump on board and start experiencing the kind of restorative sleep you need in your life? Are you waiting for a better offer? Well, your wait is over, because if you go to mypillow.com right now, you can take advantage of the MyPillow 4-pack offer, right, John?
That's right. You get 2 premium MyPillows and 2 to-go anywhere pillows at half off. Just go to mypillow.com, use my code REAL, and get 50% off. Go to mypillow.com, click on the 4-pack special, and enter promo code REAL, or call 1-800-943-4615. But don't forget, you got to use promo code REAL.
Welcome to Are You Real? Finding the Authentic You, the podcast that focuses on Christians that are active in everyday life. Join in as we speak to everyone from successful business owners to educators to athletes about their faith and how it helps them reach out and revolutionize those around them to do the same. And now, get ready to roar with your host, the voice of manifestation, John Fuller.
Hey, Roar Nation, John Fuller here, and I am fired up for today. Those of you that are just jumping in, you're not going to know this. We just did about a 20 minutes behind the scene. Questions about hearing God's voice and things that I will post at another time, also be in my book. But I'm excited for today because, man, if we're talking like exercise right now, we just stretched, and we're about to get into some really good stuff. So anyways, that being said, Will Ford, my friend, are you ready to do this thing?
Let's do this. I'm really excited and honored to be on there with you. Okay,
man. So check this out, Roar Nation. Will Ford III is the director of the Marketplace Leadership Major at Christ for the Nations in Dallas, Texas. He's the co-author of The Dream King, which we're going to be talking about, how the dream of Martin Luther King is being fulfilled to heal racism in America. Many know him internationally, however, for his family heirloom passed down through history and its connection to slavery and prayer for freedom. As a leader in the prayer movement, Will uses this, quote, prayer bowl in Revelations 5:8 as a catalyst for mobilizing prayer and teaching on intercession, revival, and social transformation. He believes that it was the prayer of a godly remnant of all races who were revivalists and abolitionists that brought revival to America and ultimately ended slavery. Receiving their mantle from yesterday, Will is actively training a new generation to release justice to the most marginalized today. Will is a father of 4. He and his wife live in Dallas, Texas. All right, Will, that's a lot to say, dude. I'm just so excited to have you on here, dude, just because of our pre-chat and things we were talking about. So, man, I just kind of scratched the surface of what you're doing, who you are. Why don't you give our guests, man, a 30,000-foot view, some more about you?
For me, like you talked about that, the family heirloom, I probably just want to start there. My favorite scripture that's around that, there's a scripture in Hebrews 11:39 and 40, which says, all these by faith, they were approved for their faith, but they did not receive what was promised, so that apart from us, they would be made perfect without us. And I never understood what that verse meant. So finally one day it hit me. He's talking about these great cloud of witnesses and all these heroes of the faith, and how God will start something in one generation and complete it exponentially through future generations to come. And that's what I've kind of experienced in my own family through this family heirloom. So in my family, I have this 200-year-old kettle pot. It was used by the slaves in my family. They used it for cooking. They used it for washing clothes, but secretly, it was used for prayer. They were owned by a slave master who would beat them for any reason, stories told, and praying was one of them, because he didn't want them to get any kind of sense of hope for freedom. So on that plantation, he wanted them to be Christians because he knew that Christian slaves made better workers, which is ironic. But
you be a Christian, but don't pray, right?
Yeah, don't pray. You know, and they probably were afraid of insurrections too. But on this plantation, and the way that story is told, he did not want them to pray because he didn't want them to get any kind of a sense for hope for freedom, and didn't want them praying for freedom or getting any kind of thought for freedom. So he would literally beat them. So we had a story passed down of an uncle who was beat to death just for going fishing without asking as a slave on that plantation. So that's how cruel slavery was on that plantation. But listen, these folks were Christians, And in spite of the danger and because of their love for Jesus, they prayed anyway. So what they would do is they go into a barn late at night to make sure the prayer meeting wasn't seen. And to make sure that it wasn't heard, they walked in with this pot. Now, this pot is about, I don't know, about 3 feet, wide, about 2 feet deep, cast iron. Walk in there with that. And they would turn the pot upside down and then prop it up with rocks so it would be suspended off the ground about an inch or two. They would then put their lips in between the opening between the ground and the kettle by prostrating themselves or laying flat on the ground. And they prayed underneath this kettle pot in between that opening so that the kettle pot muffled their voices as they prayed through the night. And the story that was passed down with the pot is this, is that they didn't think they would see freedom in their time. So they prayed for the freedom of their children and the next generation, which is mind-blowing. So one day, freedom comes as this young teenage girl decides to keep that pot and that story in our family. And I always thought, why would she do that? Well, she's probably thinking about all those who are dead and gone, who risked their lives to pray for her. She's probably thinking about all those who are now too old to enjoy the freedom she's about to embrace. So she keeps this pot and this story in our family, and she passes it on to Harriet Lockett. And then Harriet Lockett passed it on to her daughter, Nora Lockett. And then Nora Lockett passed it on to her son, William Ford Sr., who then passed it on to William Ford Jr., who then gave it to me, William Ford III. And so, and what blows my mind about it is that how, they were just using that pot as an acoustic means to keep their prayers secret. But literally, there's a prayer bowl in heaven that catches our prayers. Revelation 5:8 says that golden bowls in heaven full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. So there's a prayer bowl over your family. There's a prayer bowl over your city. There's a prayer bowl over your nation. I believe God is looking for a new generation to resource prayer bowls in heaven. So the beautiful thing is this. There was a godly remnant of not just black Christian slaves, but also white Christian abolitionists back then who knew that, if any slave was a Christian, they knew that person was their brother. And these folks actually laid their lives down for them. Many of those white abolitionists were shot, killed, and lynched because they chose to suffer with the people of God rather than compromise or wicked slavery. It was the prayers of that godly remnant that prayed into being the first and the second Great Awakening. Had it not been for those revivals, slavery would have never ended. And so that's what people know me most for, is taking that pot. I've been traveling with it for about 20 years around the country and also internationally, sharing the story of how the family legacy of prayer releases generational blessings, not only for your own family, but for the whole nation.
So let's back up as far as with the pot. What got you, or let me ask you this, what have you done with that pot? Like, what do you do as far as, I know, which our guests don't know this, but you teach, you write books. How does all that, how have you used what God's given you? So you got gifts and talents, just like the everybody listening. How have you used that with your kettle and all the different things? God, what are you doing with all that? Well,
the way I don't know, I was kind of not strange you, but God's given me a way of looking at this to see not just the impact of what happened with prayer in one little room, but how as believers we're called to have a prayer life and a life of intimacy with God that affects all of society. And as I started looking at that time period, I realized, man, it was believers in the marketplace who didn't just carry the revival from the meeting house to the home, but they also took that into every sphere of influence in society. You saw that with the revivals of Finney and how Dun & Bradstreet and the whole credit bureau system. That was birthed by two men impacted by revival through Charles Finney. And they said, hey, we need a way to put together something so that Christian businesses and other folks know that folks are credit worthy or whatever. So they started Dun & Bradstreet, which basically birthed the credit bureau system that we have today. So I started seeing how if you don't change the marketplace, you don't change the world. And so I've always had this desire to raise up marketplace believers who had a prophetic spirit, who carried revival in their heart, but they also want to become problem solvers in society. And they don't want to just save souls, but they want to see lives change. They want to see society change, the influence of the kingdom of heaven and everywhere they go. So that's how it all kind of comes together. So that's why I do what I do here at Christ for the Nations Institute, where I'm over the marketplace leadership major. And I teach on everything from, biblical worldview of economics to ethics to influence and leadership and also entrepreneurship. And I also teach on intercessory prayer and also teach on experiencing the prophetic. So that's how it all comes together with what I do at Christ for the Nations. And then on the weekends, I travel and I speak on prayer, unity, and revival. And I take that pot with me to use it as a catalyst, as a reminder of the prayer bowls of heaven. We use it as a memorial stone to remind people and of just the godly, starting blocks that we have to start off on, and how the next generation has left this ceiling that now is our floor to take this whole thing to a whole other level. So that's what I do with it.
So on your journey over the last couple of years, I know like in different seasons of our life, the Lord gives us maybe, and we talked a little bit about this before, as a scripture or like a life verse, but has there been one that just comes to your mind that's just really impacted you deeply?
Like I said, there are a couple I can think of, but one that really stands out to me right now while we're talking is out of Thessalonians chapter, the second chapter, where he says, Paul is talking and he says, having so fond of an affection for you, I sought not just to give you the gospel, but my very own life, because you become so very dear to me. And, reading that one day, just a few years back, that really became like a life verse for me. And the reason why, one, because of all the students that I have, and two, not a big following, but the people who do follow me on social media. I really want to live a life as a minister where I have a fond affection for the people who follow me. I have a fond affection for my students, my family, and I want to be a person that not just shares the gospel, but gives them the gospel through my life, because they become so very dear to me. In other words, I want to have an endearment to the people who are connected to me. And that's what Paul had as a leader. I'm working to get better at that. People talk about emotional intelligence, Holy Spirit intelligence and all that, and that has a place. But then just to have a heart connection and know how to steward that for the people who you're called to lead, that's huge. So as a leader, that's something I really want to embody, and that's what I'm trying to walk out now.
I love your heart on that, man. It's I'm real D personality, real driven. I love people. I'm filled with the Holy Spirit. But sometimes, man, I just get so driven to do stuff that it's easier for me to look past people, if that makes sense, because I'm trying to get things done. And and that's not my heart, but I have to be self-aware of that to say, okay, I need to slow down. And even with my wife sometimes, and I have to slow down just to say, hey, man, I'm not a doing being, I'm a human being, Exactly. Yeah. And it's the struggle of prophetic people. I mean, the thing about prophets, especially the strongest ones that we know, they care. The good news is they care more about what God thinks than they do what people think. But the bad news about prophets is that they care more about what God thinks than what people think. And their strength over them becomes their greatest weakness. And that's why you see so many people sometimes get run over, feel, hurt by, prophetic ministry, because, we can have some people can have a callous regard if we don't watch it, and how we steward people's hearts, because we care more, or they care more about what God says or what God wants in a certain situation. If we don't watch it, we can come not just so much religious, but they're very, very callous to what, people who are trying to, glean from us. So that's one of the things I've been trying to do, is live out that thing that Paul talked about, having so fond of an affection for you. I sought not to give you just the gospel, but my very own life, because you become so very dear to me. You said when we were talking earlier before the podcast about stewardship, and you just made the comment right now, you said stewarding people's hearts. It's one thing that the Lord has really shown me is paying attention to my friends and relationships around me that God has given me. Obviously, first and foremost, my marriage, my kids, and then people at work and stuff like that. But to steward my relationships and my friendships and how important they are, because I don't think a lot of people think of that, but God puts people in our lives for a reason.
He does. And every person who listens to us, he puts them there for a reason.
Yes.
It's something we say that resonates with them that they can't receive from anybody else.
Yeah, and some are to challenge us, some are to learn from, some are to pour into. But if we're not aware of that, we don't think about it. I think there's an opportunity to miss such a huge blessing of people in our lives and not be thankful for those relationships and to steward those well.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, Will, I want to go a little bit into your journey as far as just a little bit growing up, as far as how you got into maybe teaching Christ for the Nations, or just, once the kettle pot got passed down. And you can back up as far as you want, but I'd like a little bit of just kind of how you got into what you do.
Yeah, it started, prayer and fasting changed my life, and the fasting part is what kind of kicked it in. I mean, we can do the thing kind of religious and whatever. I love Lou Engle's definition of fasting. It's this: fasting is giving up the legitimate pleasures of this world. Food is a legitimate pleasure. Fasting is giving up the legitimate pleasures of this world for the extreme pleasure for encountering more of God. And I love that. And so I went on a 40-day fast back in 2000 and in the summer of 2000. And the first day of that fast, somebody spray painted my neighborhood, spray painted a car in my neighborhood, vandalized it. I said, God, what do you want me to do? He said, start prayer marking your neighborhood on your fast. So doing this extended fast, just water and juice. It's the first time I'd done something like that. But I'd get up in the morning, I'd start walking and praying, and I started meeting like neighbors and sharing the gospel. I got a chance to pray for people who were sick in the neighborhood and they got healed. I saw people get saved. But even greater than that, God broke my heart for revival in America. And I started studying about the first, the second Great Awakening. Started studying about the Azusa Street revival, and I just got wrecked for revival. I would just walk and weep and pray for revival. I would get up early in the morning and go late at night because, I didn't want to be seen as that weird little black guy walking around, walking down the street crying all the time, like one little Gladys Kravitz lady, looking out the window going, "Hey, Gertrude, here he comes again." I got my eye on him, peeking out the window. But anyway, so, but that's how it started. But here's what happened. So I wound up going to a prayer gathering in Colorado Springs where Dutch Sheets was teaching. I didn't know him at the time. So I was teaching him this powerful message on agreeing with the prayers of those who've gone before us and the mantles from the last generation in becoming double portion sons and daughters. And it reminded me of that kettle. So I shared it with Dutch. And just through the course of us talking and praying, I don't have time to go into the whole thing. I talk about it in the book that we have, The Dream King. But what happens is it turned into a prayer journey called the Kettle Tour. And so Dutch said, not only do we want to go to this one particular city, Williamsburg, we want to go throughout all of New England and the Northeast to all these places where revival broke out in the first and second Great Awakening. And you bring that pop from your family and all that. We use it as a catalyst to gather people. I thought, that sounds powerful. I said, God, if this is really you, confirm it. So here's how God confirmed it. When he sent me the names of the cities that he wanted us to go to, all of them, when Dutch sent me the names of the cities he wanted to go to, all of them, except for about two, were names of streets in my neighborhood that I've been prayer walking in Texas.
Oh, my gosh.
For example, we went to Jamestown, the original settlement. Jamestown Court was across the street from me. We went to Princeton University. Princeton Street was 2 streets behind me. Went to Hanover, New Hampshire. Hanover Street was next to Princeton Street. Went to Dartmouth University. Dartmouth Court was 4 streets down on the left. Went to New Haven, Connecticut. New Haven Court was 1 street down on the left. Went to Gettysburg. Gettysburg Street was around the corner from me. I mean, I could go on. And we were thinking, why would God do it like this? Well, the Dutch Sheets is his name, but the Dutch were the first ones to send slave ships into America in 1619. And my name is William III. William III, that king from England, was the first king from England to send slave ships into America. God was basically saying, I want to use your relationship to show that I want to reverse the effects of yesterday's pain. Acts 17, 26 and 27, where he says, God has made from one blood many nations and determined the bounds of our habitations, time beforehand, meaning the neighborhoods we're going to live in. And so that we can seek after God and grope after and feel after and find him, though he be not far from every one of us. And so that's what kind of God launched me. What God launched me on this thing called the Kettle Tour. But I actually wasn't prepared for everything that came up later with this amazing story that's going on with myself and Matt Lockett right now.
Okay, man, that's powerful, dude. I love this stuff, man. And what I love is is I've just been thinking about this lately is, people think that, for instance, I'm just going to use an example. People say, well, God allowed that in my life, or he gave me cancer, or he gave me whatever. And I'm like, man, our all-loving Father did not give you cancer. But what's amazing is, and they don't understand, some people just aren't at that point in the relationship. They don't understand him enough. And I get what they're saying, but what the beauty of is in the scripture, it says he turns our ashes into beauty. So he might not have given somebody cancer, or even better yet, he didn't allow, or I shouldn't say, he didn't put your family into slavery, but he is turning that story of something so horrific and so ugly, and he's able to turn that into an oil of gladness and of beauty, and he's allows you to turn that around a generation and turn a story into something beautiful and healing. That's what he does. Yeah. He restores and he heals. He didn't go cause those things, but he takes those things and makes them beautiful again.
That's an amazing way to explain that. And that's exactly right. It's what Romans 8, all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord, who are called according to the purpose. He's able to work it all together for our good, if we let him do it. And if we will allow him as a nation, he'll work even the bad things together for our good and bring healing and heal the pain from the past. And that's what I'm seeing happening now.
I love that. Okay, so I want to ask you this. I'm all about stories and life journeys, and a lot of people go through hard times. But the beauty of kind of like what we just talked about of going through a hard time is there's light at the end of the tunnel. Now, is there a story of during or going down your journey recently or past where you just thought, God, are you going to do something? Are you going to show up? Or, man, this is terrible. And it kind of like it couldn't be worse than this. And then God just like brings you through it, kind of that Moses, he splits the Red Sea in your life. And you're just like, wow, God, you were amazing.
Yeah, I did. The one that kind of comes to mind was when I was in my 20s. I was in business with my dad, and we were doing really good. I had this commercial insurance agency, we're helping a lot of people, making a lot of money. But with this one particular company that said I owed them a lot of back money and premiums and whatever. And I didn't, but I couldn't prove it on paper because for whatever reason, I reckon keeping wasn't the best at that time period. The person who was doing that wasn't doing the best job of it. And so these folks knew that I didn't owe them the money, but they knew that I couldn't prove it. So they were like threatening me. They were, putting their thumb down on me, saying I owed about $100,000. I mean, this is the 90s. It's a lot of money.
That's 90s nothing, dude. It's 2000s. Yeah. That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. And he's 25, 26 years old. I was like, oh, God. And so I was really very distraught. And I was thinking, man, I have a fiduciary responsibility. I could go to jail, blah, blah, blah. So I'm depressed as all get out. And I go to this service, revival service, and I'm there just because my sister dragged me because I look so down, couldn't sleep at night, all that kind of thing. And the revivalist that was there that night, about 2,000 people there, but that night he looked out over the congregation and he, made eye contact with me in the middle of the room. I wasn't sitting on the edges or anything. I'm in the middle of the room, all these rows. And he jumps off the front of the platform and starts making a beeline, walking straight toward me. I'm like, what in the world is going on? So then he gets to my row and starts clearing out all the people on my row, just making them leave. Get out, get out, get out, get out. And then he points to me and says, you. And the poor lady in front of me, she threw up her hands. She says, oh, thank you, Lord. He's like, no, not you. You, come here. Lays hands on me, says, take it. That's all he says. But I start sobbing, man. I'm bawling my eyes out. I'm just a puddle on the floor, tears. And I just felt the love of God hit me in waves, right? In my lowest part of my life. I said, God, what is going on? And here's what the Lord said to me. He said, William, I love you so much. I'll part a Red Sea to make a way for you, and I'll part a crowd of people to let you know how much I love you. And there was something about when I heard him say that all the depression left, but also at the same time, he started giving me downloads of how to pray through that situation. And it didn't happen overnight. It took about 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I kept praying. I prayed what God gave me in that moment over this situation. And here's what happened. The other company got audited by the government, and they were taken over, they were seized, and they were shut down. And my so-called $100,000 debt was canceled. Yeah.
I love how the Lord does that.
Oh, yeah, it was a precious moment in my life, yeah.
I just thinking about, man, there's just nothing like getting hit. I miss services like that. You're just bringing back memories for me, man. Just when God, I don't want to take too long of a side note, but there was a service one time we went to this revival, and it was in Silver City, New Mexico, on the corner of Gold Street, this AG church, and people were coming, and it was just powerful, dude. And the Lord hit me. I went up to the altar, and it hit me so hard that I was prostrate. I mean, I was just flat on my face. And I stayed there for probably 4 hours and just weeping. I mean, it was so powerful. And my wife came up to get me, and she couldn't move me. And she's just like, and finally the pastor was like, I'll just take him home when this is over. And everybody was gone. And he just sat there. And this is what was funny. He was also a worship leader. He played. He was trying to kill some time, and he decides to pick up his guitar and just play some worship songs to just like, hoping my thing's going to pass soon, right? Brother, he starts playing and the Holy Ghost shows up, dude, and it just starts all over again. It hit me so hard. We spent another hour there, man. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah, there's just nothing like it when God gets a hold of you, man. No. It is life-changing.
Nothing like it. It is life-changing, and that was a life-changing moment.
Okay, so as you started after like insurance and, God is just touching your heart about revival, you got the kettle, all these different things, you're kind of putting some pieces together. Did you have a moment where you were kind of like, man, this is what I'm called to do, this is what I'm created to do, and you felt like you stepped into that and you said, I'm going to go for it? Yeah, that's exactly. It's what happened with myself and my friend Matt Lockett. So I think that's what really defined this is who I am. This is what I'm called to do. Like it or not, I better get better at it. Yeah, it's like when God calls you to leadership, it's like either going to be a good leader or a bad leader, but deal with it. You're still a leader. Yeah. So deal with it. So anyway, I had this dream in 2004 with Martin Luther King in it. And it messed me up, man. It really jacked up my life. And in the dream, Dr. King basically, time to go to the whole dream, but basically was talking to me about healing the racial divide in America and getting rid of any racial baggage I had in my own life so I could be part of this new, powerful revival that God is going to bring to release justice, even to the most marginalized. And that's for the child in the womb to the child in the streets there in the inner city. So after I had the dream, I told it to my friend Lou Engle. He begins to weep, and he says, you know what, I'm doing this gathering in D.C., January 17, 2005. Come, bring your kettle, share your story. We'll start it first at the Lincoln Memorial, and then we'll have you preach later that night. So, what we didn't know is that there was another guy who had a dream. He had a dream about Lou Engle. The thing is that he didn't know Lou Engle existed. And in the dream, they were praying for revival and the ending of abortion. And he was like, who and what is a Lou Engle? And he didn't have that much of a heart for abortion at the time. So he goes to this newly invented thing at the time called Google, types in the name Lou Engle, up pops the face of the guy that he saw in his dream, Lou Engle. And he's praying for revival and ending of abortion in Washington, D.C. So he freaks out, tells his wife about the dream finally, and so he sees this conference January 17th in 2005. So he finally decides to come. And when he comes, he and I wind up meeting each other. We become good friends, and there's a lot more to that. We'll talk about it in the book. But here's what we found out after 15 years of friendship now.
5 years ago, my friend Matt Lockett's his name, Matt found out that the Civil War ended in his family's front yard. Wow. April the 6th, 1865, the last battle of General Lee was in the front yard of a farmhouse called Lockett's Farmhouse. Well, that was Matt's family. And then we thought, oh, that's pretty cool. Here I have this pot in my family that's connected to the Civil War and prayers for ending of slavery. And here you have this farmhouse in your family. Man, this is where basically slavery ends. This is basically where the Civil War ends, right in your family's front yard. It's about a cool coincidence for two guys who were friends. Well, then we did more research, and as God would have it, as we, he led us down the steps of finding this stuff and research for over a year and a half to verify it and make sure it's right. We found out that Matt's family is the family that owned my family, where that kettle pot came from.
Oh my gosh!
And the thing, it is just mind-numbing, right? So here's my family praying for the ending of slavery, and then up at the farmhouse of the people who used to own them, slavery comes to an end in their front yard. But then, because of the God of the past and the future, He connects two people from those same family lines together to be friends, black and white, Matt and I, to war against injustice today and to cry out for awakening in our time. It's mind-numbing. The other mind-numbing thing is this: is that Matt and I had never met before until we both had dreams, and were led by dreams to the steps of Lincoln Memorial on Martin Luther King Celebration Day, where Dr. King said in his I Have a Dream speech, I have a dream that one day the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners could sit together at the table of brotherhood. So,
dude, that's so powerful. That I was even thinking of the fact you said Lincoln Memorial, and the fact that Abe Lincoln was that's what he was pushing for.
Yeah, he was the emancipator.
Yeah.
And what I just shared with you is like the tip of the iceberg of the whole story. That's why I took a book to us to chronicle it. But all that to say, I know that God's called me to be about healing the racial divide in our nation, and to,
no, that's good, brother.
Contend for revival and contend, because it's only a united church that's going to heal a divided nation. I'm going to tell you why this means so much. I recently was asked to go to speak in Korea. I was like, why are they so passionate about this story? I took the first book that I did, that sheet about the kettle, and they turned it into a book in all Korean. I was like, why are these people so passionate about the story? They asked me to come and speak, and I accepted the request. And so they asked me to speak June 25th. And I, clear my schedule. I get there, and they said, please bring your kettle from your family. So I did. And so finally, when I got there, they told me why. June 25th is the day that North and South Korea started their civil war. And they said, we wanted you to bring your kettle because the prayers underneath that pot represent the prayers of your nation, the end of the civil war in your family. And we just need hope to believe that our civil war could end and that the wall could come down between North and South Korea. So that's why we asked you to speak this day. And I was blown away by that. They have family members on the other side of that wall. They have people living in, just some of the most horrific conditions in North Korea. And one of the people that I met there was a young lady. I won't say her name, but she was trafficked and horrible things done to her. The short of her story is that she escaped 3 times from North Korea. The first time she escaped, she was found with a Bible and tortured for over 5 hours for having a Bible. She survived that. She managed to escape again, and she ran into a man who told her that he could connect her to other family members who would escape. But that person was secretly a human trafficker, so she got sold into sex slavery and wound up getting pregnant, of course, through all the abuse and sexual abuse that she went through doing that. She managed to escape from them, but when she did, she got away from them, but the Chinese government picked her up, and since she didn't have Chinese citizenship, they knew that she was from North Korea. They send her back, unfortunately, to North Korea. So she gets to North Korea, and because she had been because she was pregnant, the North Korean government told us, well, we can't have any child of any mixed race in our country because it would taint our gene pool. Isn't that horrific to think like that? That's how Hitler thought. So what they did was, without any anesthetic or anything, men held her down, and they forced an abortion on her. They took the baby out of her body, tore the baby apart in front of her, and threw her in a room with no medication to heal. That's what happened to this lady. She manages to get healed, and she escapes again. She's spoken before the UN. She's actually shared her story with Vice President Pence about the human rights atrocities that are happening in North Korea. But here's what happens. She winds up going with a spiritual father of hers to share her story in Israel. And while she was in that room, a Palestinian who become a Christian, starts to repent and ask for forgiveness from a Jewish man who had become a Christian. And they both began to reconcile with each other. And she said the love of God invaded that room in such a profound way. She had an encounter with the Lord where he showed her all the different times which she had gone through all the different atrocities, all the different pain, all the different trauma in her life during that time. And the Lord showed her how he was with her through every single moment. And there was something about that healed her, because she could not sleep at night. She couldn't sleep at night because of all the trauma she'd gone through, all the pain. She was tormented by nightmares. But in that moment, in that room, she was healed of all those things. And I began to weep when I heard that, because I realized, man, here we are. We're fighting against each other in America. The American church, we're so divided right now. We're fighting against everything on Facebook, whatever that sets us off. But if we could just come together, we could heal the pain and the trauma that's there in the world right now. Only a united church can heal the divided nation.
And they need it, and they need to see it.
That's exactly right.
Wow. Now I'm just in tears thinking about that woman, just the power. What I love about just that story, man, is, there's so many people that go through pieces and things like that. And when we can understand that even through all that the Father was there with us, and it literally just takes a moment. And I don't know always, I there's no formula, I can't explain it, but when you get into that place where you can see that with him, I'm telling you, literally, it takes a second to get healed. I'm talking all the therapy, years of therapy, and all the things. I mean, I'll tell you a quick story. There was a time in my life where my mom's been she was abused as a kid. She had issues, and my mom's been an alcoholic and a drug addict my whole life, and and she actually lives on the streets because of heroin. And my dad's and I relationship many years ago was fractured. I had no relationship with my family. I mean, I was just hurt, and not because, and I literally had to move away from my family and sever that because of drugs and alcohol. And I knew it was just toxic relationships. And because of that, man, I was broken inside. It just hurt because I loved my family, but I knew I just couldn't be by them. And I remember thinking, I was angry. My parents, they lost my brother when I was little. He was 3. He drowned in a pool. I mean, we had gone through many just horrific things in our lives. And it was funny. I was spending some time with the Lord one day, and I wanted to get healed. I was tired of being angry and just so bitter at my family or my mom and dad and the hurts that I had. And I just started praying for them, and the Lord literally just took me back and just showed me the love. This was the thing that I said. I said, God, show me the love that you have for my mom and dad. And he started to show me their life and the things they had gone through and the hurts that they had, and how they tried to do what they knew was best, but they just didn't know any better than what they knew to do. And as we moved through that, I sat there and I wept for my family and my mom. And it was amazing because God literally healed my heart I'd gone through counseling. I talked to people and pastors and years of trying to make sense of something I was never going to make sense of, but literally just a moment a question of God to say, how do you see them, and receiving his love for them, I was literally healed in the twinkle of an eye. And then what it did though is it brought freedom, and it was allowed me to restore the best that I could of our relationship, to realize that, I can love them because the Lord loves them, and this is who they are.
Oh, that's so beautiful, man. That's so powerful.
Yeah. So anyways, man, side note, I got all teary-eyed. I wouldn't,
no.
I don't think I've ever shared that with any, maybe in a men's group or with my wife, but I mean, there's just power, dude, when you can get in the presence of God and allow him to work on your heart. Amazing things happen.
Yes. Amazing things happen. That's beautiful.
So,
Are you a responsible person who finds yourself growing deeper and deeper in credit card debt and you're not sure how to fix the problem? Then get ready for a toll-free number that will put you on a path to financial recovery. Trinity Debt Management is a nonprofit organization that will consolidate your accounts into one easy-to-manage monthly payment. Put a stop to late fees and over-limit charges, reduce your interest rates by as much as 60%, and possibly improve your credit score. You'll save thousands and become debt-free for keeps. It's not a loan. It's a smart way to relieve your stress, meet your obligations, and preserve your self-respect. If your debt has you down, we should talk. Gather up your bills and call this toll-free number for a free, no-obligation debt analysis, 1-800-741-8205. Again, that number, 1-800-741-8205. You don't want to miss this opportunity. Give us a call today.
Will, for the sake of time and stuff, and this has been a great podcast, dude. It's long, but what just real quick, what would you say your biggest strength is?
I would used to say, I guess, prayer and intercession or whatever, but I would necessarily be defined by that. Something you do that's not necessarily something who you are. But I guess if I say that, I would say my greatest strength is when it comes to prayer and in hearing God.
Okay. Sometimes I ask people, what is your biggest weakness? And sometimes it can be an extension of our strength. I don't think there's a weakness in that, but what do you feel like your biggest weakness is?
Greatest weakness, focus. And that's being I tune out everything when I focus. And I could do a better job at, being more conscious of what's around me when I focus.
Okay. All right. Talking about your book, I know you're excited about it. What is, my question is usually, what's the biggest thing that God's stirring inside of you right now? And I know it's your book. So can you give, which I have in front of me, which was awesome because I ended up getting your book. I had to fight for your book, by the way. And I ain't messing, dude. So we were at the table and people were saying they wanted your book. And I was like, no, that's my book because he's coming on my show. And long story short, I know what happened. You and your wife were talking to Sean Bowles. We were at the conference at the table. She was going to give it to him. And I think I looked over at Sean. I was like, no, dude, that book's mine. and he started laughing. He's like, no, he was just so generous. He's like, you can have it. And I'm like, no, I'm just kidding, man. I said, I'll get another one. He goes, no, dude, I can get another one. I know Will. And he goes, I'll get another book, but you can have it. So, but tell me about just what you're excited about this book and what you see that vision of what's going to happen.
Well, the book basically chronicles the story of the journey that Matt and I have been on. And the beautiful thing is that to see how active and involved God is in all of our lives, when we think about that speech of Martin Luther King's, I have a dream speech, which actually, you study it out, was actually birthed, that phrase, I have a dream, was birthed in a prayer meeting. A little lady named Prathia Hall was praying and said, I have a dream. And Dr. King heard that and others. And for a year, he started incorporating that into his speech as well as into his prayer life. And so I believe that dream prayer was connected to the prayer of Jesus in John 17, where he says, Father, I pray that they would be one so that your glory could come, so that the world would believe. And I think that's what this book encompasses. I think that's what it embodies. I believe that the dream speech of Martin Luther King's, it wasn't just poetry, it was prophecy. And I've seen it played out in my life and Matt's life, but I've seen it happening in the lives of other people. You know, we share our stories. I've washed the feet of people who were former Klansmen. I've washed the feet of people who were, in North Korea who were bound under tyranny, and washed their feet in the kettle. I've washed the feet of the King family, Dr. King's niece and daughter, with that pot. And I'm seeing healing coming to this nation that you don't hear in the news, but there's something happening in the spirit realm that people need to know about. If you want to know how to be a part of that and want to know how to really be a part of being the problem solver to healing the race issue, read this book. It's going to equip you to do that. And I couldn't be prouder of anything I've ever written. Matt Lockett was an amazing compadre to write this book with. And the synergy of our relationship really comes through in it. Our family, it's not something we just wrote about or whatever. We've been living out a life of friendship and love for 15 years now. We've done Thanksgiving together. We've been ministry partners together, and now we're doing this together. And it's just an amazing thing what God is doing. And so, if you want to be a part of that, you want to be a part of healing the racial divide, want to be a part of being a catalyst for revival, get this book. I really want you to get it, because I think it's going to be life-changing, not just for you, but for everybody who hears the story.
I'm excited about that. We'll talk more about how to get a hold of you in the book. I want to ask you one last question, and I never skip this question, but Will, if you could go back to the younger you, any age, you're going to give yourself advice. You can't change anything that's going to happen in the future, but you're going to give yourself kind of a motivational pep talk. What advice and at what age would you go back to?
I would go back to 19 years old, where I was playing basketball at a junior college. And I was disappointed because I wasn't a starter anymore. I was a man in high school, but I wasn't a starter. You get around all these other best around the country and one team and playing against all these other guys. I was a little bit misplaced in the position and all that. And basketball was kind of life for me. And I wasn't doing as well as I'd like to be doing. I would go back to that 19-year-old Will Ford, and I would say, son, be patient with yourself. It's not about basketball. It's about what God is doing in your life right now. It's bigger than basketball. There's another court above the court that you're playing on right now, that God is calling you to be a contender on a higher court. It's the courts of heaven. This will make a whole lot more sense later on, but dive into prayer, dive into the Bible, and get around some good quality people who can help cultivate your prayer life, because God's going to use it in a profound way. That's what I would say.
Great advice, man. Okay. So, Will, if we want to connect with you, your story, have you come speak at our church, do some things, and find your book, how do we find you and your book?
The book you can find it on the dreamstreamcompany.com. That's the shared website for Matt Lockett and I, and that's where you can get the book, The Dream King. Just click on the link to the store, and you can buy the book there. And what we have is actually a pre-release of it. And so you can get it exclusively right now at that website. Just go to dreamstreamcompany.com, click on the store, and you can buy the book there. And then it's going to be released in all the stores August the 28th, which just happens to be the 55th anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech. So
that's awesome. Man, I'm excited about that. Okay. As we wrap it up, what is the last piece of parting advice that you're going to give to my audience? You gave yourself advice when you were 19. Now you're going to leave some parting advice with the audience.
in the midst of all the hopelessness we see right now going on, let me tell you, everybody's favorite word right now is narrative. A narrative for this, a narrative for that, which basically represents story. Everybody has these stories. And there are narratives in everybody's family. We have generational blessings, narratives. We have generational curses that are narratives. In other words, there are these dominating themes in everybody's family. There are these dominating storylines. And I feel like what God is shouting to all of us right now is this: what storyline do we want to be a part of? The healing or the hurt, the blessing or the curse? What storyline are we going to be a part of? And so that's my encouragement to everybody: be a part of the storyline of healing. Be a part of the storyline in the family, in your family, that's going to turn everything around. You could be the catalyst to turn everything around, just like what happened with you and your family. Same thing with my wife. That's why we were in New York for a funeral. But it's about being a part of the storyline that's going to bring healing to this nation right now. And it starts with our individual families. So that's my part in advice.
Amen, man. God is a restorer and a healer. That's who he is. So, all right. Will, just want to honor you, man. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story. I absolutely I love your heart for Jesus and for people, man, and just what you're doing. I just want to thank you for you and your wife and your ministry and just stepping out and doing in a time in a nation when we are so divided and there is division. I'm just declaring and speaking healing and just love in Jesus' name, and you're being a catalyst for that. So thank you.
Thank you. And then also too, I don't know when this is going to air, but well, my wife and our ministry is 818 The Sign. And you want to know more about our ministry, go to 818, the number 818, 818thesign.org. And it's based out of Isaiah 8:18. I and the children who wrote is given me for signs and wonders in Israel. So God is raising up people to become the sign of the turnaround. That's what we've been talking about. So if you want to know more about what we're doing, please go there. And we have a conference coming up in August and other things. So that's a good way to stay in touch with us as well.
Absolutely. Amen. And I'll have all those links as well on our show notes on our page. So Roar Nation, you can jump on our website and we'll have links and all those things, so you don't have to go back and rewind or anything. You just click on it and we'll take you straight there. So Will, hold on just a second as I wrap things up, my friend. Roar Nation, I love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I hope you're inspired today. Today we talked about healing, restoration, and just the love of God. And my prayer for you today is that you would just go after God, ask him what he wants to do for you today, and just go after it with all your heart, all your mind, and don't lean on your understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. So that just came out of nowhere for me to give to you. But I just encourage you to grab that verse and just expect big things from a big Father. So love y'all. Have a blessed day, and we'll see you soon.
That's all for this episode of Are You Real? Finding the Authentic You. Be sure to go to areyoureal.org for your free questionnaire to identify your gifts and talents and how you can use them to help people become leaders and catapult them into their destiny to help others become the leaders of tomorrow. We appreciate you spending your time with us and look forward to helping you reach out and revolutionize next time on Are You Real? Finding the Authentic You.